Hello and welcome to the tarp. Today we're going to cook lunch on the old-fashioned hexagon stove, still used in the army, and unbox a replacement for the old one that fell apart. They're very reasonably cost, you get them just for a few quid, so you don't worry too much if they fall apart, and they're only meant for brief deployment in the field. The army are still using folding stoves, the British Army, along with a different kind of fuel. So we're going to have a look at that this afternoon, shall we? What an excellent view from the tarp. Can you hear that? The lungs of the forest. Let's make lunch. So this is the hexagon solid fuel cooker with drinking mug, stand, and the instructions for use inside. You can tell this is ex-army surplus because it's stored in this brown greaseproof paper, and when you unbox it, it's got a kind of, rather than a white zinc colour, a golden alloy colour. What I like about this is they supply a BCB mug insertion panel for the top of the stove containing the flame nicely. So let's assemble it and see what it's like. In my kit today, my fire kit, I've bought this just in case, but I won't need that. But it's always good to bring one along in case your skills fail you. What I'm using today is the well-known and trusted modern method of cooking in the forces. It's the Fire Dragon cube. Fire Dragon is a clean gel fuel made from natural sources. I guess it's slightly less toxic, to say the least, in my opinion, than hexagon. Fairly safe, but on the other hand, you don't want to be breathing in any kind of fumes from any kind of burning chemical. But this is probably one of the best and safest fuels on the market. I decided to use the hexagon block after all, since we're outdoors, and to my surprise, in this folding box there is no tray for the gel, which turns to liquid when it heats up, whereas this shouldn't, being a hard block. So let's ignite it with a spark if we can. Failing that, we'll have to resort to the cigarette lighter. I didn't think this would work, but nope. Well, that's the verdict. It doesn't want to light using a spark, so we'll use the old-fashioned technique. Ah, the lighter's past it as well. Well, there's always a contingency plan, and that is a tiny drop of meths, literally a teardrop, onto the hexagon block, and hopefully we won't set the whole estate on fire, and then we'll just flash it with the spark, and that should work. It has. So that's one way of doing it. Right then, on with the heat. This should do a good boil in a fairly good record time, I expect. One of the problems I'm trying to overcome is that camping, oh, this is not fitting very well. So this is a BCB, oh, it is fitting with great difficulty. So there are drawbacks already. You need to fit it together properly, and then the BC mug fits very tightly into that area. It's not perfect fit, but it's nearly. I've got a feeling it might fit better with the Mark II BCB mug, which I don't have. However, we'll make do. So I'm going to do a half mug, boil up, see how long it takes, and I'll get back to you. Well, I'm not too impressed with this. 5 minutes later, the water, which is already sterilised from a hot tap boiler and taken onto the field with me, is safe to drink and will make a brew. But I mean, even in warm conditions, this is 20 degrees today, the same weather as Palma, I believe, and this is northern Britain. And there's no wind, and it was burning fiercely for about 5 minutes, and the block, I think, has gone out, it's finished its job, and it hasn't really done much for me. So I'm not very impressed with the old Hexagon stove hard tablets, so I'll not be using them in future. And that's probably why the army have switched over to the Dragon liquid fuel. So let's give that a try now. Well, while I'm waiting for the coffee to brew for a few moments, on that slightly underboiled but still fairly safe to drink water, I'm going to give a little shout out to Joe of Hooped Bivvy Camper. He makes his coffee the same way as I do. Well done, Joe, and yes, cut down on the amount of coffee you put in the mug, as you've said, because it's going to send your heart rate through the roof and give you a sleepless night. No wonder you only slept 4 hours on the last wild cab. Anyhow, I'm not sleeping overnight, I'm just here for the afternoon, but the coffee is nearly ready, and I noticed that you, like a few people, put a bit of cold water in the mug afterwards. That's a new one to me, so let's see if it settles the grains further. A little water around the edge, can't think why, I haven't got the sides of that, and theoretically that should help the granules to go to the bottom. Well, I think it has worked. Not sure how that happened, but I think you're onto something here. Well, Joe, that did work. Cheers to you. That's really good. I think that's the clearest decanting I've ever done. So something does happen when you put a bit of cold water into the mix at the last stage. I guess it kind of, as water does, if you put hot with cold water, it does a kind of swirl, invasion process as the molecules all settle into a new charge. And so the coffee, I suppose, just drops out of it. That's how it works. That'll be this. I guess that's the science behind it, in my humble opinion. But certainly, it's a very fresh drink. Oh, top end. Well done. So, back to the hexagon block. Even the hexagon block dissolved near the end and fell through the hole in the hexi stove. So as far as design goes, I'm not at all impressed. So I probably won't be using it ever again. I'm glad they only cost a couple of quid, so I haven't wasted too much. What I'm trying to find is a safe, efficient way of cooking without detection in a plantation, and most importantly, cooking without any risk to the environment of setting fire to the moss or the dry grass that might be nearby, or indeed the plantation for that matter. So when you do a stealth covert camp in a forest, you want to enjoy the solitude of it, you have to respect it. So what I'm trying to do is find, other than having a little gas stove, which is utterly safe, but it does make a noise, but that might be the only option at the end of the day if you're going to do stealth. But I'm going to now try the Dragon fuel, because it's the latest thing, just a couple of years old I think, been in use, and the folding stove that the army are using now is slightly smaller than the old hexiblock stove. It's more compact and much, you put in your pocket, but it does have a tray because the Dragon fluid does liquidize when it gets hot, and therefore there's nowhere for it to escape, I assume. So what I'm going to do is try and use this modern fuel in the old Mark 1 Osprey BCB burning hearth and see if I can contain the fluid in the circle where normally I have a bit of fire rope for holding mess. Let's see if that works, shall we? It says easy opening, and indeed it is. One corner's got a soft corner, and then you flip it up, pull it back carefully, keep it together, then squeeze one corner, they say. And on today's menu, it's not quite a la carte. Smoked paprika, noodles, and a little bit of ham, and of course a full clove of garlic chopped in. Let's see if we can get it going without a match. One, two, three, four. So that's working with the spark, that's good news. 300 ml of water left in the bottle, just covering them over nicely. I like having minimal equipment, the absolute minimum of equipment, because it's less to carry and it's less complicated. Well, I think the noodles are just about ready to serve. They're looking fantastic, and that just took a few moments. I'm very impressed. Well, thanks for joining me today. It's been fun again. The verdict is the noodles were delicious, adequate, not a la carte, but they were very good, and the coffee was excellent. And of course, from now on, it will be the BCB fire dragon fuel that I'll be using, combined with meths. So the good thing about the dragon fuel is it burns quite fiercely for about 4 or 5 minutes. You would need to use 2, unfortunately, if you wanted a good rolling boil of 9 or 10 minutes or more. But adequate for heating up and cooking, absolutely no doubt. 1 would do, but 2 for a big mug of water rolling boil, I would say, is probably what would be required. But the same with meths as well. 1 tube of meths burns for about 8-9 minutes, and it gives you a rolling boil in warm conditions. In the winter, perhaps you need 2 as well. So I think we've got the answer, and it's this. So I highly recommend, for safety in a forest, the low risk of the fire spreading, this is the future. Well done again, BCB. Thumbs up. So it's goodbye from me until next time, and be good, be glorious, and chin chin.